master coming on. Flaps coming down. Fuel quantities full on both. Here we go. Gonna do some lights. Strobe, nav, landing light. There is no light in this video, but here we go. Because everybody likes seeing you in the video here. We are gonna go night flying. You can barely see us, but we're gonna go do a couple of instrument approaches, some night takeoff and landings so that I can stay current for night flight like we did in Palm Springs on the way back. Bill's gonna be my safety pilot. What else you can do?
I'm gonna take a lot of pictures and cry a lot.
So come along with us, we're gonna go fly at night.
Via Juliet Hotel Alpha.
Juliet Hotel Alpha, runway 28 right, and over 75 departure. Okay. Light coming off. I don't know how any of this video is going to turn out here, but we're going to get our lights set up here. Turn those off for now. Okay, parking brakes released. I could do some more paint. I know, right? It is really hard to see. Alright, let's get plates here. Montgomery Airport. Okay. Stratus is hooked up. We got the moving plane. Clear left. Clear right. Alright guys, welcome aboard. I don't know if this video is going to turn out because it's night and I was trying to figure out on YouTube how to do the best night settings for the GoPros, and it seems like I was able to find it, but the video is going to be the telling cause of it. I have a feeling it's not going to work, but maybe you'll get to see something here. If not, we won't even make a video. I'll just have to stick to daytime stuff, so I'll have to play around with all this a lot more. Full moon tonight. Gonna do a couple of instrument approaches to practice those. It's like a helicopter. Montgomery Tower, November 4975 Foxtrot, holding short runway 28 right at Alpha, ready for departure.
That's 4975 Foxtrot, Montgomery Tower, runway 28 right, clear for takeoff. Straight out departure approved.
Okay, straight out departure approved. Runway 28 right, clear for takeoff, 75 box.
Sunset to 40 Golf, runway 28 right, clear to land.
Okay, final. Clear to the right.
Cherokee 630, number 2, following Twin Cessna, 3 mile final, runway 28 right, clear to touch and go.
Runway lined up, 280 on the heading bug.
Montgomery Tower is Cherokee 91630, the next one will be full stop.
Cherokee 630, number 2, runway 28 right, clear to land.
And number 2, straight right,
Turn the green.
Archer 404, Charlie Alpha, number 3, follow the Cherokee head, runway 28 right, cleared for the Cherokee head will be a full stop.
Number 3 for 28 right, follow on that Cherokee in front of me for clear for the option. 28 right, what's your push right?
Traffic on the crossway. Yep, traffic in sight. Okay, we got 500 feet of altitude. I hope he knows that we want to...
Set 75 Foxtrot, contact SoCal departure, 119.6.
119.675 Fox. So different frequency.
Well, the night video did not work as expected, so we're going to fill in a little audio and video here of some of the stuff that we go through flying from daytime versus nighttime flight. Bill's going to help me out because I'm sure I'll miss some stuff. So some of the stuff we were going to talk about that we have to transition from is obviously the visibility perspective.
Yeah, at nighttime, you only have about 30% of the visibility you have during the daytime. That's the same thing if you're driving a car. But it's 30% for nighttime flying, and when you're out above the terrain and the city lights, things get blended in, as you'll see on the video.
Yeah, another thing too is, going along with that is obviously during the daytime here in San Diego, when we usually take off, most airports are west, so they fly out over the water. We don't have any ocean perspective to look at, so that's obviously something we have to take into account. Like you said, a lot of the landmarks we would use as well. I don't know, what do you have any past experiences that...
I'm learning about the area here down in the San Diego, Montgomery, San Diego Airport. There's a couple other airports that you'll see as we're flying around, and the landmarks are important for you to keep track of. There's a highway that you have to keep on one side of the airplane, and a little hill at the far end of the pattern that you want to keep off your nose until you turn base. All those kind of landmarks become more difficult to see in the evening. And you'll see also on the video that even though there's a full moon out, we'll point that out a couple times, it's still very dark, and you can lose the horizon as well. So a lot of challenges at night, and so that's why pilots practice that.
I would relate to when I was getting my private pilot's license back in the Midwest, and we went on a cross-country flight, and when we departed our airport to come back home, it was 8, 9 o'clock at night, pitch dark. We cruised back at like 8,500 feet, and there was no moon out, so it was very, very dark, but there were clouds developing high level, and you actually could not see them, and it wasn't in our flight briefing. So we actually almost got into IMC conditions unexpectedly. Luckily, at the last minute, we were able to see it, and we were able to dive down. So night flight can be a lot more treacherous than daytime.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure everybody understands this, but you can fly two different ways, your pilot's licenses and certifications. You can fly with visual reference to the ground, which means you can't go into the clouds. You have to have a certain amount of flight visibility, 3 miles or 5 miles, depending on where you are and your altitude. And clearance from clouds. You have to be so far away from clouds. And at nighttime, it's hard to see where the clouds are sometimes. And so maintaining that cloud clearance, you could easily transition from visual flight rules, which is what we're flying most of the time. We're going to practice some instrument stuff tonight. But you could easily get yourself into IFR weather. And a lot of pilots aren't certified in that. And there's some requirements for understanding the complexities of instrument flight, including the equipment that you have to have inside the airplane. And you guys see every once in a while on the flight deck that I have a screen off to my right, and Chris has one right in front of him, and it provides a lot of data that pilots use. And for instrument flight, it's more complicated. As Chris flies through these flights, you'll see him reading through a plate, practicing an instrument approach. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And he's getting all that data, which wouldn't ordinarily be available to a pilot flying VFR.
I want to change the whole perspective nowadays too. I mean, not only for VFR and IFR flight, but this for flight and just how digital everything has become too.
Right. I mean, everybody remembers seeing pilots dragging the suitcase full of charts onto their airplanes when you're flying commercially. Well, they don't do that anymore. They just have an iPad, and it has all the digital information available to them. It also makes flying safer. There's three-dimensional data and access to charts and pages that would be complicated or difficult to get to when you're just flying around looking at paper charts.
Upper Tower 75 Fox with you, about 5 out for the ILS 28 right. Miss back to SoCal for the GPS.
That's 175 Foxtrot, Montgomery Tower, continue.
No landing clearance, runway in sight. Hey, you're on the needle, you're doing well. Yeah, I'm having to chase it a little bit here. Okay, glide slope starting to come in, power is coming up. We are at Penny, following it down. Set our power for
252503, make right traffic, runway 28 right, to takeoff.
28 right, clear for takeoff.
Below 110, first notch of flaps. Nose is going to come up, push it over, 500 feet a minute. Okay, 673 is the minimums. I'll say about 800 feet. MSL will break out. Glide slope's good. Localizer, little right of course, correcting. But it seems like I need to hold about a 290 heading just because of what the winds are doing to me here, so I'm correcting.
775 Foxtrot number 2, follow at Cherokee on right base, making a short approach, runway 28 right, clear for the option, then right down departure approved.
Clear for the option, 75 Fox searching for the traffic. Got the traffic so you can stay inside. Almost to my breakout minimums. 500. Traffic's at the approach end. Okay. I'm gonna go to 700 feet on the breakout.
Traffic in sight.
And breakout. Okay, power's coming in. Carb heat coming in. Get a positive rate of climb. Flaps coming up.
All right, so we just finished flying an ILS. It's an instrument landing system approach, and it kind of is. A couple radio stations that tell the airplane how close to being lined up straight in they are to the runway, or how high they are on a glide slope going down to a runway, and so you can follow that. It's kind of like 2 radio stations that you can follow. This time around, we're going to go use some satellites to navigate to the airport, and the satellites will create that same left-right, how close are you to the center of the runway, and how high above the runway, and how fast you have to descend to get to the runway. So while Chris is briefing the approach, I wanted to visit with you for a couple minutes about importance to pilots and to the FAA, which is the regulator, and that is wrong surface landings. At airports that have more than one runway, there's an issue that's been arising lately about being cleared to land on one runway and mistaking it for another and moving over. I'm going to show you, here's a picture of the Palm Springs airport. We flew out there on our last trip, and you can see that there's a big main runway here, and it's dark asphalt, and there's a taxiway just to the right of it. You can see it looks like a runway, and the actual second runway at Palm Springs is even to the right of that. It is a very small runway far down, and people sometimes mistake which runway they're going to. Now back over here to Montgomery, where we're flying tonight, you can see they have 2 runways that are parallel, and then another runway that comes in from the right and crosses through the runways. The runway on the left, 28 left, is a small runway. It's only 60 feet wide. It's not lit at night. And the big runway that we're going to land on tonight is 28 right. It is lit. Now, when you're flying during the day and you have 100% of your visibility, especially if the weather is good, you can still pick the wrong runway to land on. So it's very important that you watch your compass. If you look in the video, you'll see there's an orange compass just above the center between both Chris and myself. It's always there. They call it a whiskey compass because it sits in alcohol. Or used to, and so we always follow that. Make sure that the heading is correct, and you want to make sure that the runway numbers that you're approaching have the numbers that the runway you're cleared to land on. Making sure you're familiar with the airport and the runway that you're going to, and that the communication is clear is very important.
So what's the data on current day now? Wrong surface landings, is the majority of it still during the daytime, or is a lot of it at night?
Most of it is during the daytime. Like we talked about here at Montgomery, there's only one lit runway at night, so it kind of negates that. But at bigger airports, particularly general aviation airports, it's more of a factor, mostly during the day.
Montgomery Tower, 75 Foxtrot with you about 10 out for 28 right, and we'll do a low approach, stand up pattern for a couple of touch and goes.
That's the 475 Foxtrot, Montgomery Tower, roger, continue.
75 Fox, continue. Carb heat out. Fuels on both. Mixture's full rich. We're below 110. First notch of flaps. Nose is going to come up. Push it over. 500 feet a minute. About 2,000 RPM. Landing light, strobe lights, nav lights, beacon. We are good. I'm going to take this down to the same thing we did last time.
Okay.
75 Foxtrot, number 2, following us, Cessna, correction, yeah, Cherokee turning about a mile right base, runway 28 right, go to line. I'm sorry, cleared for the option, then make right traffic, Cessna 75 Foxtrot.
75 Foxtrot, traffic's in sight, and we're clear for the option, 28 right, right traffic down. Nicely done, this helps a bunch having you here doing this. I can clearly tell I'm holding some crab in here for the wind.
Yep.
A little bit of speed. Okay, there's minimums. All right, air runway in sight. Power's coming in. Carb heat in. Achieve a positive rate. Flaps coming up.
Flaps coming up.
Thank you. Pitch for 75 Foxtrot's on the go, and we got the traffic ahead in sight.
75 Foxtrot, roger, squawk 1200 and follow the Cherokee ahead.
1200 will go, 75 Fox. Thank you much for your help. I appreciate that very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You know that.
It's 4975 Foxtrot, traffic to follow, and Eclipse jet over the lake inbound, report in sight.
Eclipse in sight, 75 Foxtrot.
75 Foxtrot base turn to follow that Eclipse jet traffic, they'll be on the go, runway 28 right, clear for the option.
Clear for the option, number 3 behind the Eclipse jet, 75 Fox. And did he say Eclipse jet doing a touch and go?
Yeah.
Huh. I would have thought that'd have been a full stop taxi back.
along with staying in the pattern, we have to manage the aircraft because we're flying 10 miles out for an instrument approach, which gives us more time to brief the approach, to set the aircraft up and get stable so that we can execute the approach properly. Whereas staying in the traffic pattern for touch and goes or full stop landings, low approaches, everything happens within a mile of the airport, and you really got it takes about 7 minutes to do a touch and go in the pattern at the airport. So things happen quick. You got to stay above and ahead of the airplane, otherwise you can't recover fast enough and then you may need more time. So that's why being comfortable with your instruments in the airplane at night and knowing where everything's at and it functioning properly is very critical and important. I think we can relate to when our RPM gauge didn't work right. Yeah. We had to pull the flashlight out, and so that creates additional stress and workload on the pilot as well as the co-pilot to not only do what he's doing and looking for traffic, but to also help me out and making sure that we've got everything set how we need to. Now I would kind of rely on you because you've been in the aviation industry more than I have been, but our surroundings when we're flying at night using visual references on the ground.
Yeah, big difference. You're at a lower altitude, your speed comes up pretty quickly, you have to level off, manage the aircraft like Chris was talking about, and get ready for a landing. In addition, the airports that we're flying in and out of are mixed-use airports, general aviation airports, some commercial traffic, and in the pattern you're often following another airplane, and it may not just be another propeller-driven airplane. It could be a jet. You'll see on our next approach, they asked us to follow an Eclipse jet, and it's a smaller jet, but way faster than we are. And they also leave something behind them. It leaves a wake turbulence behind it, kind of like when you're passing a big truck on the highway and you feel that bump as you pass them or get caught behind them. Airplanes do the same thing in the air, so it's another thing that controllers or pilots have to consider. Also, if you are following another propeller airplane, it may be slower than you or it may be faster than you, so you have to adjust your pattern for that as well. So Chris is going to turn base following an Eclipse jet. You're going to see how he judges where to turn, how fast to turn, when to descend, what altitude to be at. And those are all things that we have to take into consideration on top of watching for obstructions around the airport or other aircraft.
Yeah, it's you don't really notice me doing it, nor do you notice Bill doing it, but we use freeways a lot also out at night because we know them on our map, and we use those as references to sort of know if we're east-west or north-south, if we're south of a certain point, to stay within the traffic pattern. And that's obviously pretty critical. Moonlight at night during this flight was helpful to sort of shine light on the ground. It also glistened the tops of the mountain peaks in order to let us know that, you know, there is a mountaintop out there and it's this high and we're below it, so we wouldn't want to get too far out in the danger zone. But Bill's going to take us in basically on this last approach, and he does a great job. It was an extremely difficult approach because it's nighttime. We're going to full stop for the night because we're all done, but the next video you see will probably be me doing certification to get checked out in the Skylane, which is a faster, higher, more performance airplane, so we can hopefully take trips as a family places, and Bill and I will go back up probably for some local stuff around the area probably in the next couple of weeks. So thanks for tuning in. I guess we'll see them next time.
We'll see you on the next flight.
All right, bye-bye.
I just did.
All right, 65 on the airspeed. So I was finding you were having to point the nose a little bit right of center line and then left rudder. Looking good. I'll start pulling your power a little bit, pitch that nose down, get down to that glide. There you go. Yep. Pitch your nose down. There you go. Now kick that left rudder in. Little right aileron. There you go. Now start easing that power out. Ease that power. Ease that power. Ease it. Now we start pulling back. Start pulling back. Ease her. Get her into the flare. Let her float. Let her float. Let her float. There we go. Not bad. Nicely done. Just let it ride. Let it ride. Let it ride. We'll pass it because they hate. We'll hit the next one. It's all right.
You got the rudders?
Yeah, I got them.
Okay.
You can do it. I just wanted to catch the next one. I want to jam on the brakes.
Oh, you got it.
So it's 4975 Foxtrot left at Mike. Cross from 28 left, then you can contact ground.
Okay, we'll make the left turn here at Mike. Cross 28 left, contact ground. Thanks a lot. 75 Fox, you have a nice night. Okay, cross 28 left. You can flip us over, which is 118.225. Carb heat in, flaps coming up.
And Montgomery ground, 75 Foxtrot's cleared at Mike for Gibbs.
Cessna 75 Foxtrot, taxi to Gibbs, via Hotel Juliet.
Hotel Juliet to Gibbs. Good night now, thanks.
Good night.
Not bad on the landing. That was pretty good. And it's at night, too.
There's no wind. And it sucked, but thank you for...
No, I would be awfully proud of that. So what did we learn tonight? What's a lesson we can take away from?
Well, for me, I'm still, you know, fussing over get to the altitude and turn down one thing. So that's my takeaway from tonight.
Yeah.
Stay, you know, I really like pointing the airplane at the farthest peak to the right. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, yeah, that's VFR flying. I mean, I guess I probably could have just given you a heading, I suppose. So we're going down the second aisle.
Second aisle and parking the...
Backing it in.
Tricky.
If anybody watches this YouTube video that's from the Gibbs Airport or San Diego City Airport, you need to repaint this place.
All right, we're past the line.
Okay. Securing the airplanes. Parking brake, we'll leave it off. Stratus off. Avionics power switch.